Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about Dungeons & Dragons and the rise of paper minis. And specifically today, I'm going to talk about Trash Mob Minis. Trash Mob Minis is specifically a brand new, they're relatively new, tabletop role-playing game supply company. They supply paper minis, right? And I want to talk specifically about Trash Mob Minis today because they represent some major trends in tabletop role-playing games overall, and also within the supply chain for Dungeons & Dragons. So Trash Mob Minis is really special. So they're really unique. So let me explain what they are. So one, Trash Mob Minis is they're a supplier. So they are a vendor, right? So for Dungeons & Dragons, they have Dungeons & Dragons, they have partners, vendors, and customers, okay? So essentially, they have. So Trash Mob Minis is a vendor who supplies minis to Dungeons and Dragons specific customers. They don't really Trash Mob Minis doesn't actually sell anything to Dungeons and Dragons, to Wizards of the Coast, right? But they are a vendor within the supply chain to the customer base for Dungeons and Dragons, right? Now, why am I talking about them in such detail? Well, they really are very important because, one, they represent a lot of trends. So trend number one is the rise of paper minis, right? So one, paper minis are really a big deal within tabletop role-playing games because they are leveraging the power of technology, right? So printing is getting easier and cheaper, right? And especially when you need miniatures and you need to kit out. So actually, here's the thing. Keeping a miniatures collection is incredibly difficult. An actual plastic miniatures collection, I have a friend who has well over 1,000 miniatures. And he has a problem where literally his miniatures are sprawled throughout his basement in bins, right? And so when he comes up to a game on a given week, right, it's very difficult for him to go and get the exact miniatures that he needs, and often he won't. So I have a guy who has actually taken the time to collect all the miniatures you would possibly need for a Dungeons & Dragons game, which really is hundreds, right? And the problem is once you own those actual minis, they're so delicate or they're so big and they take so much storage that you can't actually retrieve them all in a reasonable amount of time unless you have literally given a lot of real estate of your home to your miniatures collection. I've seen that done as well, right? So having a large miniatures collection, an actual miniatures collection of real plastic miniatures or metal miniatures is incredibly expensive or difficult, right? So paper minis really helps, right? So with paper minis, you can get your minis much more reasonably priced, and the storage is far better. The ability to store paper minis is infinitely easier than storing actual minis, right? Now, a lot of people really didn't care about paper minis for a while because one of the things is they were a relatively new piece of technology, right? And so one of the things is I have been using paper minis for a long time. Now, I don't really use paper minis. What I use is Paizo's pawn sets, which are fantastic. You really should call them cardboard miniatures, right? But these paper minis are actually paper minis. They are printed on they can be printed on cardstock, they can be printed on regular paper, and they have lots and lots of basing options, right? So you can go with really jank, quick builds for these paper minis, or you can go, you can print them in black and white, or you can print them in color, all those kind of things, right? So paper minis are a real new option, and because our hobby is growing so robustly, right? And there's so many people getting into it, right? That really paper minis are really becoming a very much a new big part of our hobby, right? Now, I would say personally, I think that if you take out cardboard, for one, I really think the best product to buy by far are the Paizo pawn sets. They are unbeatable as far as price and quality, right? They're built at scale, they're thick, they're durable, they're absolutely fantastic, and I can speak to them and I love them, right? But Trash Mob Minis is really important, okay? Because they've done something that no one else has done. So Trash Mob Minis has a line of minis you can use for Dungeons & Dragons. You can use it for any fantasy-based tabletop role-playing game. And what Trash Mob Minis has done that's really unique is they are giving you real paper minis, right? These aren't... You buy a PDF from them, and once you buy that PDF, you can print 100 minis, right? That's one of the advantages of Trash Mob Minis, is once you buy a PDF of their... Let's say you buy a PDF of their skeletons. The PDF has 10 different types of skeletons. It's got skeletons, holding nothing. It's got skeletons with armor. It's got skeletons with a short sword. Skeletons with archery, with bows. You get lots of different ones. But once you own that PDF, you can print 100 of them, right? You can make as many as you want, right? So they are really interesting from the perspective of being able to control how many miniatures you're making, right? So that's really interesting. The other thing that's great about these paper minis is not only do they have some cool basing options now, but because it's a sharing community, right? Like, people give ideas for how to base these things all the time. There's literally there's no less than a dozen different ways to base these things, and each one that comes out is better than the last, right? Cheaper or more efficient, or cheaper and more efficient. It really is incredible. So one of the things that's great about our hobby is really a great little laboratory for using technology to make things cheaper or more efficient, or cheaper and more efficient, right? So it's just fantastic, right? Now, here's the real kicker on Trash Mob Minis. All Trash Mob Minis are drawn in a cartoonish style, right? And they're published in color, okay? So you can have these super colorful paper miniatures, right? In different, and you can have medium-sized creatures, large-sized creatures, colossal-sized creatures. They're really fantastic. It is incredible, right? But they're all done in this cartoonish style, right? They look like Neopets, right? Like, if Neopets were really, really well drawn, they look like Neopets. So you can give your D&D game this cartoonish flourish with all of the non-player characters, and even with your monsters. This is incredible, right? So this is a specific miniature, right? And this company has put this very specific style onto their miniatures. You could do this with any style, right? You could do a Brahms style. You could come forward with a very technical, almost like a blueprint style, right? You can also give stylistic touches that are specific to one specific game, right? So Trash Mob Minis could absolutely make a line of miniatures that are just for Call of Cthulhu. They wouldn't even need, well, actually, you know what? Let's pick a different, because Call of Cthulhu is it's public domain. So let me actually pick, you could really do, here's a perfect example. You could do a Star Wars line, and you could even draw it in the way that Star Wars, of Dark Horse Star Wars comics, right? And you would need to make sure that they look distinct. You couldn't exactly draw. You'd need to do a T-Turtle style. You'd need to do kind of a filter over it so that it wasn't directly robbing their IP, you know what I mean? But the reality is, the ability to map a style on an entire grouping of minis is incredible. Trash Mob Minis is the first company I've seen to do this with paper minis very effectively, very efficiently, giving more buying options for minis fans, giving more storage options for mini fans. It is important. Trash Mob Minis is really a solid company out there, and they're really doing something really unique. The other thing that I want to say is, how can you do this, right? Because Trash Mob Minis, they are selling to a market that wants stylized, cartoonish Dungeons & Dragons monsters. That's such a little niche, right? Well, one of the ways that they're doing this is they sell in bundles, but they also sell Monster of the Week, right? They will sell you a set of spiders, right? For $6, you can get a PDF, which is a bunch of spiders. A big spider, like a Shelob type, and a bunch of little spiders, and some spider webs, minis that will represent your spider webs. It's nuts, right? There's just so much, right? So, and that swings back to where Trash Mob Minis is actually doing a good job of giving people these options, these more style, these more these more financial options, but they're also giving options for very rich players, right? Where you're literally going and dropping $10, $20, $30 a week just to buy the exact miniatures you need, right? I've never bought, I've never had I make good bank, and I do not have enough money to buy miniatures piecemeal on spec, exactly what I need that week. That seems crazy to me. I always buy my real miniatures when I come across, here's a deal, here's a, Black Friday sale, and you're getting 50 bone skeletons for $20, some kind of real deal, right? But here, they're giving, now, how are they doing this? How are they doing this a la carte, minis purchasing options, right? Well, the way they're doing it is they can, right, because there is a market for it. And one of the reasons why, this is the other trend that I think Trash Mob Minis is pointing to, and that is there is just so much money in tabletop role-playing games right now, right? It is a small market, but one of the things that's interesting is, while it is a small market, right, we are seeing an issue where right now it is reflecting what's happening in America. Right now in America, unemployment is ridiculously low, okay? Now, I think there's a reason for that. I think it's pure math why unemployment is so low right now, right? Here's the kicker, and this is like, people should understand this. This is a major thing that touches politics, culture, and society, right? And I think this is going to happen in virtually every single first world country going forward, right? There is this brand new trend. No one saw this coming, and it is affecting us in the tabletop role-playing game industry, and that is how money flows in America. So right now, almost every employer in America is really challenged to get good employees. And the reason why is everybody's working. There are extremely few people who are unemployed in America, right? And the reason why is there's just tons of work right now, right? Now, one of the reasons for that is this very specific reason. Here is what has happened, right? Baby boomers are dying, right? They're finally starting to die in that. By the way, when I say finally, there was about 10, 15 years ago, there were some analysts who said that baby boomers were going to die 10, 15 years ago. In mass, they didn't. They built a whole bunch of they built a whole bunch of funeral homes that weren't needed because baby boomers were living way longer than everybody expected. But right now, baby boomers are starting to pass away, okay? Now, baby boomers are passing away, which means you need to replace them in the job market. Millennials generally do not replace baby boomers one for one. You really need to hire 1.5, 2, or 2.5 millennials to do the same work that a baby boomer did, okay? I think a lot of industries are seeing this right now, right? So basically, you have a lot of deaths happening. You need to replace them in the workforce. The millennials coming up, don't replace them one for one, right? So when you hire one person to replace the worker that you just lost, you actually need to hire more than one employee, right? Again, that strains the job market, right? So basically, now you have a situation where it's hard to get employees. So how do you get the employees you need, the quality employees you need? You pay more, right? So right now, and you're seeing this, Amazon, one of the largest employers in the country, one of the most high-tech employees in the country, just raised their minimum wage to $15, right? $15, which is exactly what actually the blue side has been asking for a long time. Excuse me. So everybody's working. Employers are having to pay more, right? And we are seeing that money showing up at our tables. We are seeing it showing up with people buying more than one TRPG, people buying custom minis, people having money for paper minis, not just paper minis, but paper minis that are stylized in a cartoonish style, right? We have that money for luxury items. And more you are and the other issue that I think the hobby really is going to start to need to own is the realization that we're not that old as a hobby, right? We came out in the early 70s, and in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, everybody was trying out Dungeons & Dragons as a tabletop role-playing game and saying, hey, do I like this, right? And I think really back then it went across all economic classes, the non-well-to-do, the middle class, and the well-to-do, right? All three, right? And I think you really saw people playing Dungeons & Dragons across all three of those classes, right? Back in the 70s, 80s. I don't think that's happening anymore, right? And I think the reason why is generally, this isn't new. It's not something everybody needs to come try. People can already just listen to what the general zeitgeist about a game is. And more, I think it's very, very clear that generally the market for tabletop role-playing games overall is middle class and well-to-do. And once you have acknowledged that, right, then you start to see projects like Invisible Sun, right? Huge luxury projects, luxury TRPGs with custom dice. By the way, the rise of custom dice, another perfect example. Custom dice, custom tokens, maps, boards like board games, and I think Trash Mob Minis overall is just a pure, unadulterated proof point, right? A point of evidence that TRPGs really are settling into a middle class and well-to-do market, right? And and more. This is a big deal because when designers come to design their game, in the old days, there used to be this idea, I can't do custom dice. People aren't going to have enough money to buy it. But now they're like, oh my gosh, are you kidding? They're going to have enough money to buy my hardback. They're going to have enough money to buy 10 sets of the dice because everybody's working and the pay rates are going up, right? So that's the issue. So overall, I think Trash Mob Minis are really a sign of money in TRPGs. If you haven't seen Trash Mob Mini stuff, go check them out. Super, super solid, awesome content. Like Paper Minis overall, I'm really excited. I'm excited for their product, but I'm also really excited about just the idea of having these products out there. I would literally love to see a Brahm style of Paper Minis, right? I would love to see a Wayne Reynolds, line of Paper Minis, right? I guess we already have that through Paizo, sorry. But I would, there's just so many, so many different things you could do with these Paper Minis. And the Paper Minis are exciting because it really shows you there is so much more to explore and so much more to accomplish within our own hobby. I'm really curious what you think. Take a look at Trash Mob Minis. Let me know if you think, this is a great new innovation, or you're like, no, I don't really think this is needed, right? I'd really love to hear what you think. What do you think of the idea of TRPGs kind of owning the idea that our market really is middle class and well-to-do, bands? And then also, please, if you would, consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful day.